and you see the selfish way you live, not to please Him, enjoy yourself and satisfy your lusts, and I got to heaven finally. I'd be ashamed to get to heaven like that, I'll tell you honestly. I would be. And I won't get a second chance to show my love for Jesus Christ by sacrifice. In heaven, I'll get plenty of opportunity to show my love for Christ with praise and worship and thanksgiving and all the wonderful things we can do in heaven. But there's one thing I will not be able to do in heaven. I will not be able to show my love for Christ by sacrificing and denying myself, because there'll be nothing to deny myself in heaven. There'll be nothing to sacrifice in heaven. And I want to say to you that if you've missed the opportunity to take up the cross and deny yourself here on earth, you've missed it for eternity. And you live with a regret about that for all eternity. We tell unbelievers there's no second chance to be saved. It's here on earth or never. And I say to believers, there's no second chance to take up the cross and deny yourself and follow Jesus. It's either now or never. And as much as that unbeliever will regret that he didn't accept Christ here on earth, the believer is going to regret that he didn't take up the cross here on earth. That's the type of church I want to build. I'm not interested in building any other type of church, because that's the only type of church that Jesus came here to build. That's what He died for. He never told His disciples to gather people who want to go to heaven. He said, if anyone will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. And He said, go into the world and make disciples. That means people who want to follow me. That's our calling. Why don't people do that? Because you won't get many numbers. No, you won't. But you'll get quality. You'll get a church that Jesus can proudly point out to the devil. You know, in Job's day, when the devil could point out so many hypocrites on earth to God, God could say, yes, it's true, Satan, but have you seen Job? He's different. And today, when the devil can point out so many hypocritical churches and multitudes of Christians who want to just go to heaven, and the devil says, look at these people who call themselves Christians, God, they only want to go to heaven. They're not interested in you. Then God should be able to say, yes, but look at this church. There are not many there, but look at that. Look at those people. They're not like that, Satan. They're a credit to my name. I hope you have a burden to be a part of a church like that. I hope you have a burden. If you have any type of ministry, to build a church like that. That's the only thing I want to spend my life. I've spent 40 years doing that, in India mostly. And I have no regret as I look back. A life that pleases God. This is our ambition. That I will not change my direction if I'm suddenly transitioned from earth to heaven. There'll be zero, not even a 1 degree change in my direction. It'll be 100% to please God from morning till night to the best of my ability. The only thing is, here on earth, because of the weakness of the flesh, we may accidentally slip up and get up again. That won't happen in heaven. But as far as my will is concerned, it's set. Only to please God. I hope that'll be true of you. And if it is not, my brother, sister, I hope it'll be true of you before this weekend is over. That is what Jesus lived on earth for. You know, in God's desire to lead man out of the sin into which Adam led the human race, He did it in 2 stages. The first stage was what we call the Old Covenant, not Old Testament. The Covenant and Testament mean the same, but unfortunately we call the 39 books of the Bible Old Testament. And the Bible doesn't call it that. People have called it that. I would prefer to call it books written before Christ came and 27 books written after Christ came, because we confuse. The Old Testament, 39 books are not abolished, not at all. They are very much the Bible. We must read it, I study it, I learn a lot from it about God. But the Old Covenant has been abolished. That is the covenant that God made with Israel on Sinai, which is known as the law, that's been abolished. You read that in Hebrews chapter 8. There are 2 verses in Hebrews 8 which are very important for us to understand. I've come to see that the fundamental problem with many Christians is that they have not understood clearly the difference between the old covenant and the new covenant. They don't know that the old covenant has been abolished. And people want to live under the old covenant. I wonder why. India became independent from the British in 1947. All of you in America became independent from the British in 1776. Do you want to go back under that rule again? We don't want to go back under that rule in India. Why do Christians go back to the old covenant, which was abolished 2,000 years ago? I can't understand. God's abolished it. Hebrews 8 verse 7, that first covenant was faulty, and therefore there was a need for a second one. What does it mean when God established a covenant that was faulty? If the first covenant had been faultless, there would have been no need for a second covenant. Is it like some car manufacturer that makes a car and discovers there's some fault in it and rectifies it in the new model? Not at all. What it means is that God never intended the first covenant to do all that God wanted to accomplish in man. It was not possible. So God had to do it in 2 stages. In that sense, it was faulty. Not that God made a mistake, He never makes a mistake. But He had to do it in 2 stages, and therefore there was a second covenant, and he finds fault with that first covenant and says, I'm going to make a new covenant now. And now, see this, it will not be laws written outside on tablets of stone or in a book. Verse 10, I will put my law into their mind, the middle of verse 10. I will write it in their hearts. That was not possible under the old covenant. So the first step was that God's laws will be written on tablets of stone. And to have it written in the Bible is not much different from having it written on tablets of stone. It is outside of us. But in the new covenant, He said, I will write it inside of us. And when He wrote it on tablets of stone and gave it to Moses, He was thereby implying man's heart is hard